Hi, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits. My name is Rob Scuderick. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to put a waiver wire video coming up for week 5. Now, we like to get out ahead of the competition, of course, give you some food for thought, although we do know things are going to change. There's some injuries today. Of course, tomorrow and Tuesday, we'll get more injury reports coming in. So, as always, it's good for you to follow the waiver wire, go to our sites, our Facebook site, our website, or even videos as we'll give you updated information. It's getting the end of week 4, and so for me personally, the last 2 weeks have been pretty exciting. I've done pretty well. I haven't lost a game in 2 weeks. Things seem to be falling into place. I like the depth on my team, although in fantasy football, things can change quickly. All it takes is one weekend, a bad injury, something happens. So things can change. Right now, things are looking good, but it's never time to get complacent. Even if you're having a good year, you can never have enough bench depth. Okay, and you can never have depth in terms of need. Bye weeks are coming up, injuries, and you can begin to look to playoffs, things like that. So once again, no matter good or bad, once again, it's important to continue to work the waiver wire. Now, we put out a number of videos, and first of all, I want to say we love feedback, and I love your feedback. In fact, I love a little pushback at times. I love when people send us messages, even if they don't agree. Once again, keep it decent, okay? But one of the things that we love and one of the things that I've received in the last couple of weeks is a lot of pushback on the Chicago running back situation. Tyrod Cohen and Jordan Howard. And kind of we assess that situation, and kind of our feelings were is what's going to happen is Jordan Howard being a back by about 50 pounds, he outweighs Tyrod by 50 pounds. He's a more physical, bigger back. We felt what's going to happen is he'll continue to see the majority of the carries, 15, 20, maybe even 25 carries a game, where Cohen, what he's going to do, he's going to get maybe 8 to 10 carries per game. Maybe he'll see 6, 7, 8 targets per game because he's a smaller back at only 176. He's lighter, probably can't handle that punishment. And so we kind of felt like it was going to shake out that way. A lot of people felt we're crazy. Tarek is so athletic. There's no way this is going to happen. He's the beast. One, we love him. He is athletic. He is amazing. But we do think he's limited. Well, the last 2 weeks, I think our assessment has been accurate. It's playing out exactly how we said it was going to play out. This is the way it's going to shake out the rest of the year. But there's other things like that. That once again, some of the viewers out there, you don't always agree. Anyways, we want to hear that. We love that. We love feedback. We love pushback. We love the dialogue, even if we disagree. It's exciting to do that. Now, coming up as we look at week 5 waiver wire pickups, okay, we're beating bye weeks. So this is the first week coming up here that we have bye weeks, and we're going to be having Atlanta, Denver, New Orleans, and Washington are on byes. And so you're looking at players like Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Kirk Cousins, some of the big names will be off the board this week. Then you add to that, of course, we have many injuries that are piling up, and probably the biggest injury today, or at least what we're hearing so far, is the indications that Dalvin Cook might have tore his ACL today, and so one, that hurts is I own him in fantasy league. 2, I'm a Vikings fan, and so once again, that's really tough. And so between the bye weeks, between the injuries, it's so important that we look at waiver wires and look at who's out there. Once again, those are some of the guys that are available out there. Coming up, week 5, once again, is Atlanta, Denver, New Orleans, Washington. The week after that, of course, we have Buffalo, Cincinnati, Dallas, Seattle. And after that, Detroit, Houston. So once again, this is a time where we really get to challenge with the depth of your team. It's so important that you prepare for these bye weeks. Now, for a lot of people, they're beginning to have a quarterback quandary, as we're saying. They're struggling to figure out whether it be lack of productivity, whether it be injuries, whether it's a bye week. People are starting to have issues with quarterback. We're going to look at some quarterbacks that you may want to pick up this week coming up that you may want to start. But before we do, I want to share just a little bit, something that we had talked about here at FFP, at the Fantasy Football Profits. Now, one of the guys that's on a bye is Matt Ryan. Okay, he's going to be off next week. But the one thing I want to talk about just briefly about Matt Ryan is even before this happened, Matt Ryan's been struggling this year. If you look, he's thrown 4 TD passes, only 5 picks. And a lot of people are surprised. A lot of people took him in the first round, and they're really confused by what's happening there. Well, here at FFP, we're not surprised at all. In fact, we saw this coming. And if you go to our website, fantasyfootballprofits.com, that's profits with an S, here's what our preseason rankings said about our quarterbacks and what we specifically said about Matt Ryan. Here's what we said. Here's my prediction. Last year was a bit of an aberration. This was the first time that Matt had a quarterback ranking over 100, only the second time he had over 30 touchdown passes. This is somewhat concerning when you consider the weapons around him in the past used to consist of Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, and Julio Jones. So besides last year, he's routinely underachieved. Also consider the fact that he lost offensive coordinator and quarterback guru Kyle Shanahan, who left for the 49ers. Don't be pressured to take him too early because of last year's bumper year. Remember the tragic overreaction Manny had with Cam Newton last year, taking him 1 overall. And so once again, yes, Matt Ryan is coming up on a bye, but he's also a guy that's struggling. And if you look at his history, he's had a couple really good years, but beyond that, he hasn't been the greatest quarterback. He's somebody that you may want to consider looking beyond that bye week to replace him for him, or at least start to put a guy on the bench to replace him if he continues to struggle. Other guys, once again, that are looking at possible injuries right now. David Carr had a back injury. We don't know the extent of that injury, how serious it's going to be. Marcus Mariota left with a hamstring injury. And so besides those injuries, besides guys being a bye like Breeze, Ryan Cousins, and Trevor Siemian, of course, some other names out there that you can consider at quarterback coming up in Week 5. Well, here's one name that you need to consider, not just Week 5, but Week 5 and beyond. That's Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Houston Texans. Now, we talked about him last week in our waiver wire video. We also talked about him on our preseason videos. And he's available in about 70% of leagues out there right now. He's got a nice progression. In fact, if you look at his quarterback ratings, the first 4 games he was in, the first game he had a quarterback rating of 60.4. Bumped it up to 75.9. Then last week was 90.6. And this week, his quarterback rating finished at 125. He had a stellar, unbelievable game today. He looked just excellent. If you look at his fantasy points on Yahoo scoring, his first week he had 8.68, 17.7. He bumped it up to 26.14, and this week he had 33.72 points on Yahoo standard scoring. And so once again, this is a guy that's looking better and better. He's athletic. He's a wonderful quarterback out there. He's got a bright future. Now, it's not that just he has immediate value right now. It's not just somebody that you can use on a bye week. He's a guy who has huge dynasty value. So once again, if you're looking at somebody out there for a bye week, even beyond, Deshaun Watson is a guy he's rooted himself. He's going to be the quarterback of that team. He's a quarterback of the future. He looks great week after week. He's progressed nicely. And so once again, a guy that you need to consider picking up in your league. Available in 70% of leagues out there is Deshaun Watson. So another name out there that some people might be considering picking up is Andy Dalton. Now, he started off the year, he struggled the first 2 weeks. A lot of people dumped him. Hasn't had a great career. He's had a decent career, a little bit slightly above average. 1 year he had really good, but then get injured right before the playoffs. Now, the last 2 weeks, it appears he might be getting back on track. In the last 2 weeks, he's got 6 TDs and no interception thrown. He's available in over 50% of leagues out there, but I want to caution you with Andy Dalton if you're looking at him maybe for a bye week replacement. He's going to face a Buffalo defense that heading into this week, okay, gave up the second fewest amount of points to quarterbacks. So they're very tough defense against the pass. And they shut Ryan down today for the most part. And so once Andy Dalton's out there, yeah, he's an option for you, I suppose, if you're desperate. I'd probably try to look somewhere else for an option for replacement other than Andy Dalton right now. Once again, he's had 2 good games in a row. But once again, they're heading to play Buffalo. And Buffalo's really tough against the pass. Probably not somewhere you want to look to for next week. What about Carson Wentz? Well, he's a guy that I just going to mention briefly. I'm not going to talk a lot about him. He looks solid. He's a second-year quarterback, looking very good. Filled up. He looks pretty decent right now. He's only available in about 20% of leagues. But what I would say is I assume he's not going to be there in your league, but it never hurts to check, okay? You never know. Go ahead, dropped him. He may be out there. So in 20% of leagues, he's available. He's a guy you certainly could pick up to play. Once again, check first before you move on to someone else. Now, here's another guy that you may want to consider. And this is another guy you need to consider. Now, he's got a very tough schedule coming up. He's playing some teams that are very good against the pass. But Jared Goff, former first-round pick, we talked about him last week. We talked about him early in the year in the preseason. He's available on 78% of leagues out there. Right now, he's looking the real deal. This team is looking solid. Right now, they're 3-1. I believe they sit atop of the AFC West or the NFC West. And his TD to interception ratio at this point is 7-1. He's thrown 7 TDs, only 1 pick. He's getting better and better each week. The emergence of Todd Gurley takes pressure off him. He's surrounded with solid weapons. You look at Watson, you look at Woods, you look at Cooper Kupp and guys like that. And so this is a very good offense surrounded by a lot of talented players. Jared Goff is a guy that's out there in almost 80% of leagues. Got a nice mix of weapons. He's certainly a guy that you could take a look at. Once again, he does have a tougher schedule coming up. I'm not quite there to make him my number 1 guy from this point forward. But he's got dynasty value, and you can certainly plug him in for a bye week if need be. Look at Jared Goff. He should be out there in most leagues. So another quarterback you might want to consider is Eli Manning. Eli Manning is a guy who started off the year, he struggled. The whole team had really struggled. He's available in about 41% of leagues, so that's pretty good. Now, the last 2 weeks in Yahoo scoring, he scored 27.64 points, and then this last week, 27.72 points. Now, what happens week 1, Beckham didn't play, and when he did play week 2, he still wasn't 100%, but now he's over his ankle injury. He's looking better. Marshall's getting involved in the mix. And they play the Chargers next week, which isn't a great matchup, but it's a decent matchup. And so once again, Eli Manning seems like he's getting better. It seems like they're working some things out. The offensive line's making some improvements, and they did a little bit better with the running game today, although they're not great yet. They seem to be trending in the right direction. Eli Manning, certainly a guy that you could pick up and play if you're desperate at this point. So what about Alex Smith? Okay, well, he's available in about 37% of leagues. I think he should be available more. He's not a guy that I would roll with long term. We talked about a video earlier there. I know he had a great game one. He has a history of starting hot in the season and then cooling off. But I would say this. Would I start Alex Smith next week? If you're desperate, yes. He's going against a Houston defense that has gotten better and better each week. They're getting more and more pressure on the quarterback. If you look at where they're at from week one to where they are this week, that defense has improved greatly, and they're getting stronger, putting more pressure on the quarterback. In fact, today against Marcus Mariota and Tennessee defense, or against the Tennessee offense, they really made him look terrible, slowed him down. So once again, he's not a guy that I would roll with. I hope there's a better option out there for you. Right now, the Texans defense and that Houston team is just looking better and better. The defense is looking better. They're getting healthier, putting more pressure on the quarterback. I would look for a better option out there than Alex Smith. Obviously, if he's all you have, then roll with him. But once again, I think there's some better options out there for you. Blake Bortles. Okay, and so he's another one that's available in a lot of leagues out there right now. Okay. But he looked terrible again today. This guy's a hot mess. He looked terrible his rookie season. He looked terrible last year. He looked terrible in the preseason. He did have one good game this year, but beyond that, he's looked terrible. Even after that good game, we did a video and we cautioned you not to get too excited by that good game. Once again, Allen Robinson's not there. This is a team that wants to play defense, run the ball. He didn't look good again today. And next week, he's playing a very good Pittsburgh defense who just got Watt back, some other players back. They can pressure the quarterback. They can do some really good things. Blake Bortles, once again, stay away from this guy. This is not your answer if you're looking for a replacement. How about Joe Flacco? Once again, I want to talk about him. He's available in about 80% of leagues out there. Now, he missed the preseason because of injuries, and you can tell it's really causing him. His timing's off. He doesn't look good. He's not sharp. He's really struggled. Now, he's going against the Oakland defense next week. Going into this week, Oakland had given up the fourth most points to quarterbacks. And so once again, he hasn't looked good. He has struggled. He might be somebody based on his matchup that you could roll with this week against Oakland. I'd prefer to go elsewhere in terms of quarterback play, but you certainly could roll with him. Once again, he hasn't looked good, but his matchup is favorable at this point. You could roll with Joe Flacco, I guess. Jay Cutler's another one that's out there. He's available in 70% of leagues. He actually has a favorable matchup coming up against a Tennessee pass defense that's been terrible right now. Tennessee's pass defense has been atrocious. Now, the one concern I have about Jay Cutler is he's had a good matchup this week, and he really struggled. That team struggled. So, just having a good matchup in and of itself is not sufficient to make him a good starter. Although I do think that Jay Cutler's got enough talent. He's surrounded with enough weapons there with Parker and Landry and some others that I think that he can certainly have some good games from time to time. And the coach said today, even though they struggled, that after today's game, that Jay's a starting quarterback at this point, and that's not even up for conversation. So once again, he's going to be the starting quarterback. He does have a favorable matchup, and he is available in 70% of leagues. Jay Cutler, once again, somebody that you could roll with, though I'm not terribly confident with him at this point. Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer is available in 35% of leagues out there. Once again, not a lot, but he's still out there. He's got a decent amount of availability. Now, over the 4 games he's played this year, 3 of the games he's had over 300 yards passing. Just got John Brown back from injury today. And he's going against a Philadelphia defense that in the last 2 weeks, Philadelphia's defense has given up 27.64 and 23.88 points to quarterbacks the last 2 weeks. So once again, he's got a decent matchup there. They're starting to spread the ball around pretty well. He's starting to get his timing down. Without a running game, without David Johnson, they tried to run the ball with Chris Johnson. It's not working out. They tried Williams. They tried Ellington. Once again, all this team really can do at this point until David Johnson comes back is pass the ball. Carson Palmer has actually got a good matchup. If he's available, he's a guy I would definitely pick up and I would roll next week if you need somebody. How about Tyrod Taylor? He hasn't been good. Now, as of today, Jordan Matthews, his number 1 wideout, was hurt. And this is a guy that I would just simply stay away from. Now he's a talented, athletic quarterback. Every once in a while, he'll put it together. He'll have a big game. But once again, he's so hit or miss. He's a guy that, could go 300 yards, throw for 2 TDs, and run for 60 yards and run in. But he's also the guy that can go 100 yards and get you 5 or 6 points. And then once again, he's just too hit or miss. I would stay away from Tyrod Taylor. So those are some quarterbacks for you to consider coming up in the bye weeks if you're looking at injuries. But now I want to move on to some running back options out there, guys you may want to pick up, whether it's to play right away or guys maybe you want to put on your bench for later, guys that could develop into future players or guys that maybe you could trade or package for other players. And here's the first running back I want you guys to consider. Alvin Kamara, the running back for the New Orleans Saints. He's a rookie running back, 5'10", 215 pounds. He's a third-round pick out of Tennessee. Now, he looked great in the preseason. But I think the concern for a lot of people, and it was even my concern, he was behind Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram. Okay, and so even though he looked good, even though he had talent, he was explosive, the coaching staff loved this guy. You know, you got to lead past two guys. You figure he's not going to get a lot of looks. Well, right now, Adrian Peterson has looked terrible. Today he had 4 carries for 4 yards. He's done. Okay, Adrian Peterson is an afterthought at this point. Someone have to drastically change before he had relevance in fantasy. So now Adrian's out of the picture. Okay, well, they're seeing that Alvin's workload has been increasing week after week. Not only is his workload increasing, but his scoring is increasing. First week in Yahoo scoring, he had 7.8 points, bumped up to 8.4, to 13.2, and this week 25.6 points. Today he had a career high 5 carries and 10 targets for 10 catches. This is a guy they're getting more and more involved in the offense. Now, I don't think he's going to overtake Ingram right away as a starting running back, because Ingram is still effective. He's still running well. In fact, the past 2 weeks, Ingram has had 14 carries each week. But he's an explosive back. He looks great. He has huge dynasty value. You can't let him sit out there. Okay, he's available in a number of leagues, but once again, you got to get this guy. You got to put him on your bench. I wouldn't play him right away, but I certainly would. If you're desperate, you could play him, but I would certainly put him on my bench and wait and see what he does another week or two from now. Once again, this is a guy that's really coming into a good position here. The next guy you need to consider is Doug Martin. Now, he's coming back from suspension this week, and he's only available in about 17% of leagues, so he's not available in many leagues. But once again, if he happens to be out there, because what can happen a lot is that, and I've done this before too, is that you assume that he's a talented player. Obviously, he's not out there, and you just ignore him, and then sure enough, he's out there, like I said, around 20% of leagues. So check and see. Maybe you're in that 20% where he's available in your league. He is coming back from suspension this week. And so, from all reports, he's going to move right into that starting role. He's going to be the starting running back. He looked explosive in the preseason, and he really doesn't have a lot of competition. Jacquez Rodgers is really not the answer there. Now, Doug Martin, he's really Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Yin and Yang. You really can't figure out what you're going to get. He's been in the league 5 years. Now, in 2 seasons, he's been phenomenal. He's been a top 10 running back. He's been great. 2 seasons, he averaged 1,428 yards with a healthy 4.71 yards per carry. But the other 3 seasons, he averaged only 475 yards a year with a wolf of 3.39 yards per carry. So which Doug Martin are we going to get? Well, that's really hard to say, but I think they've got enough weapons in the passing game. They have a good enough quarterback. They can focus on shutting down the run. And he looked really, really good this preseason. So he's coming back this week. He's rested. He's healthy. He's ready to roll. He becomes a starting running back in that team once again. Doug Martin, if he's out there, you got to get him. So here's another guy that we have talked about. In fact, I talked about him last week as a waiver wire guy to consider. It's Alec Collins, running back of Baltimore. Now, he's had 2 weeks where he looked decent, and this week he followed up by being named the starter. He started, and he had a good game. He had 9 carries for 82 yards. He looked good. In fact, he was the only player on that entire Baltimore team that looked decent at all. He's 5'10", 215 pounds. He's a second-year back out of Arkansas. Now, last year during the preseason, this guy looked great for Seattle. A lot of people thought he could get that starting role. It didn't work out for him. Well, now he plays for Baltimore, and he's been looking very good. In fact, 3 weeks ago, he had 7 carries for 42 yards. That was 6 yards per carry, pretty good. He followed up with 9 carries for 82 yards, which is a healthy 9.1 yards per carry. And he did the same thing again this week, 9 carries for 82 yards. Once again, he looked explosive. He looked good. Now, is there a downside to Alec Collins? Really, the only downside at this point is that he's had a history of fumbling the ball. In fact, unfortunately, this year he's already lost 2 fumbles. And so he lost a fumble today. They sat him for a while, but then they brought him back. And once again, immediately upon bringing him back, he had a 50-yard run. Looked really, really good. So this is a guy that you can't let sit out there. It's hard to find good running backs. If he can hold on to that ball, okay, if he can deal with those fumbling issues, this is a guy that's the real deal. He could be an explosive back. So how about Paul as a guy that's out there? Okay, well, he's available in about 30% of leagues. He had a huge game today. 21 carries, 163 yards. He had 4 catches, 27 yards. And so this guy looked phenomenal. I know a lot of people were really excited about this guy moving into this year. We were concerned. At least I was concerned. I wasn't as big on him for a few reasons. Okay, one, he had a great year last year. But beyond that, he's really been a journeyman, okay, that at times can do some spot starts, be a third down back, be successful. But how good is he? Is he a guy that we can get excited about? Is he a guy that we should jump on? Should you have him as your starting running back? Well, I will say this. In fantasy football, especially this time of the year where there's injuries and bye weeks, any running back that's going to get volume, any running back that's going to start immediately has value. Okay, and so any back, including Powell, can have value. but I want to temper your expectations a little bit with this guy. Okay, you look at the first 3 weeks before this week, he had a 2.6 yards per carry. Okay, before this breakout game. Now I think what helped him in this game is when Matt Forte was out. So if Matt Forte is out again and he can get a bulk of the carries, that's huge. Once again, just simply by volume alone, he has huge value. Okay, but I think we also have to be a little bit careful about how big of a game he had today. Once again, it was a great game and certainly needs to get our attention. If he's out there, he's a guy you probably need to throw on your bench, do something with him. Certainly don't ignore him. But in the same game, Elijah McGuire, a rookie, had 10 carries for 93 yards. So you look at this and you got to wonder, was it a great game by him or was it just really, really poor tackling and poor run defense by the Jags today? Because that's kind of what happened. Once again, Powell and McGuire had huge runs. One had a 75-yard touchdown run. One had a 69-yard touchdown run. And so once again, that was huge. Now, another thing that concerns me too is that Elijah McGuire did have a big game. Now, here's why that concerns me. One, makes me wonder how good his performance was, or was it just a matter of the Jags just having terrible run defense today? Second, Elijah McGuire continues to perform like this. He's going to steal carries from Powell. Powell's not a young running back. He's 28 years old, so certainly he's on the downside of his career. So if a guy like McGuire can come in and make an impact, they're certainly going to give him the opportunity to do that. So once again, you need to pick this guy up. He certainly looks decent. I would pick him up. I'd put him on my bench. I would monitor injury reports. I would see if Forte is going to come back or not. I would certainly look at matchups. He can certainly be helpful for you, but don't expect him to be a number one back from this point forward just because he had one good week. Now I'm on to another guy that I think you need to pay serious attention to. Running back for the Giants, Wayne Gallman. He got activated today by the Giants, so he got first chance to play, and he played well. Okay, he's a 4th-round pick out of Clemson. Now with Perkins not performing well and Darkwa not doing well, and Shane Vereen's role on that team is a change of pace back, a 3rd down back. They're still looking for that guy to carry. Well, today he had the most carries, at 11 carries for 42 yards. Doesn't sound great, but of all the running backs, if you watch the games at all, if you've seen any of the play, he by far has looked the best. Okay, he's ran the best, a little hop on his step. He also caught 2 balls, so he won for a touchdown, so he's got ability in the passing game to be involved. This is a guy that, from all reports, from what we've seen today, he's going to get more shots, more opportunities to be that starting guy for the Giants. So once again, if he's out there, you got to get him, you got to pick him up, you got to put him on your bench, okay? Another guy out there, and excuse the slide out there is wrong. It's not Alec Collins. I don't know why it says that there, but it's Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones of the Packers, once again, forgive the slide mistake there. But Aaron Jones, okay, running back of the Packers, he's available in 90% of leagues. Now this week, Ty Montgomery went down with broken ribs. Now, the day after, they said the ribs weren't as bad as originally thought, but once again, it's broken ribs, okay? But going into this year, if you go to our site, we talked about Ty Montgomery. One of the things that we told you is we had some real concerns about durability for him being a wide receiver that's been converted to a running back. And if you look at it, also another concern that we have is his performance. So right now, Ty Montgomery's yards per carry went from 5.9 last year down to 3.3 this year. Now, Ty has maintained huge value, but he's maintained huge value this year, not because of his ability to run the ball, but he's caught a lot of balls out of the backfield. He's still a great guy catching the ball. He's a great receiver. Now, right now, the Packers seem to have a lot of different injuries. They had Nelson that was banged up. Cobb's missed time. Adams has a concussion. And what I could see happening here, if I was a betting man, what I suspect is going to happen is that from time to time, Ty's going to be moved out, okay, in the slot. He's going to get a lot of balls in the backfield in terms of like catching the ball, lineup, maybe even a wide receiver. If Jones can be a productive running back, and last game, he looked good. Okay. Now they have rookie Jamal Williams, but he hasn't shined in those. In fact, in those roles in a limited time, he hasn't looked good at all. But they brought in Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones has really thrived in that role. He looked good on Thursday Night Football. So once again, he's a guy that you got to pick up, you got to stash. Don't be surprised if he starts getting more and more carries, and they save Ty Montgomery for passing downs because of their injuries, even moving to wide receiver roles depending upon the health of their wide receiving core. In fact, CBS's Tracy Wolfson reports that Jones had increased practice reps before this even happened. So even before the injury this week, okay, even before Ty got hurt, even before Jamal Williams got hurt, he was moving up the depth charts and looking better and better. And sure enough, he had an opportunity this week to play, and he looked really good. So here's a guy, once again, forget the slide there, mistake. Aaron Jones is a guy that you need to keep your eye on, running back of the Packers. Another guy to consider out there is Latavius Murray. Now, this one's tough for me. I'm a Vikings fan. Grew up in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota. I love my Vikes, and I love Dalvin Cook. This guy has looked great. Besides Hunt, I think he's looked as the second best rookie out there by far. He's shined. In Forget everybody else. Forget about Leonard, the Jaguars. This is a guy that has looked really good, but today he left the game with a non-contact injury. Whenever a player goes down with a non-contact injury, it's never good. The early reports are, once again, I can't confirm this, but so far it looks like it's a torn ACL, out for the year. Once again, Dalvin Cook looks like he's going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. So who's going to get his carries? Well, it's going to be Latavius Murray. He's available in about 85% of leagues out there. Now today, Latavius ran. He didn't look great. He had 7 carries, 21 yards. He's not going to be explosive. He's not as dynamic, of course, as Cook, but he's going to be serviceable. Okay, he's a guy that you can certainly put out there. He'll get the lead role. Now, some people think it's going to be Jerick McKinnon, but here's what they're going to do, the Vikings, once again. I tell you what's going to happen right there. Jerick McKinnon is not going to become the lead back. He's going to continue in his role as the third down back, change of pace, come in to give a rest, and Murray's going to be that guy that's going to get maybe 15, 20 carries a game based on game flow. Once again, Latavius Murray, most likely, if it's confirmed that Cook is out for the year, he'll become your guy. You need to pick him up. He's available about 85% of leagues out there. Running back LeGarrette Blount. Now, we talked about him a couple times recently. Now, the first 2 weeks, they weren't that great. A lot of people saw it on him. He got dropped in a number of different leagues, but he's still available in 23% of leagues out there. We told people, don't panic, don't worry about this. He's still going to be that big back. He's going to be physical. He's going to get a bulk of the carries. He fits that role well. That's why they brought him in. And sure enough, today, he had a huge game. He blew up for over 100 yards. Over 100 yards. He looked physical. He looked strong. He looked great. If he's out there, once again, in 23% of leagues, he is out there. If he's in your league, you need to pick him up. He's going to be a decent back going forward. Once again, LeGarrette Blount for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a few wide receivers I think that you need to keep an eye on looking forward. Wide receiver Robbie Anderson of the Jets. Now he's a second-year wideout. He's looked good at times last year. Okay. Last week he had 95 yards in a TD, and today he had 59 yards. So once again, not huge volume, not big numbers. He's not a guy that I want to roll with. I see him as more of a 4 or 5 wide receiver at this point, but he's somebody you certainly could put out there. He's still young enough, has enough potential that he can continue to blossom in that role. And if you're desperate, once again, he's just a guy you don't want to leave out there if you've got space to put him on your bench. Now last year down the stretch, he had a 3-game performance where he averaged 5 catches and 80 yards and had 2 TDs during those times. So once again, he's shown at times that he can be productive. I will caution there. Don't rush to get him. Don't overpay for him. But he is young enough that you should certainly keep him on your radar. Another guy out there, Michael Floyd, is coming off suspension this week, so he's coming back for the Vikings. Now he's going to be the number 3 option on that team. Don't be deceived. Stephon Diggs, okay, Adam Thielen, they're the 1 and 2 guys there, and they both played great. But Thielen did leave today with an injury. Now, he did come back and he did play, but between Diggs and Thielen, they both had a hard time staying healthy the last couple of years. So once again, Michael Floyd is a proven veteran. He's shown he can be successful, and he's somebody that all it takes is 1 injury and he can move in that starting role. He's a guy certainly I wouldn't pick up right now, but I would definitely put him on your watch list, somebody to keep an eye on. Don't overpay, don't get too excited, but certainly keep him in your fantasy conversations from this point forward. Cooper Kupp. I love this guy. Really love him. And so, and I think a lot of people do, especially his coaching staff. He's available still in 60% of leagues. He's a slot receiver. He looked great in preseason. Coaches love this guy. They talk about his work ethic, his attitude, and they compare him to a young Jordy Nelson. Well, if we know Jordy Nelson's a very, very good wideout. He had another good game today, 5 catches for 60 yards, caught his 2nd TD. Now, he's a guy that's good now, but he's got huge value in dynasty leagues or PPR leagues. So once again, Cooper Kupp, he's a guy you got to pick up. Once again, he's not top 3. He's not a 1, 2, or 3 wideout yet. He's right there on the cusp, but probably number 4, I would say. But once again, he's on the brink of moving into that role, becoming a serious 1, 2, or 3 starter in fantasy teams. Very good guy. Cooper Kupp, you got to pick him up. Once again, available in about 60% of leagues. So here's another guy that you need to consider out there. Will Fuller. I actually picked him up on a keeper league that I'm in last week. Saw him, stashed him on my bench. Thought, you know what, I had a bench spot there. One of the things that we always preach here is don't leave dead weight on your bench. And I had a guy on my bench that really didn't have a role for my team. I didn't see a lot of potential long-term for him, so I thought there had to be a better fit. I picked this guy up. I'm glad I did. He's available in 69% of leagues. Houston wideout. People forget that he's a first-round pick from last year. And he's a first-round pick that was really highly touted. He looked great in the preseason. And the first 4 games of last year, okay, he was averaging over 8 targets a game. He had 2 games of 100 receiving yards, and he had 2 TDs. The guy was looking phenomenal, and he was derailed by injuries and terrible, terrible quarterback play by Brock Osweiler. But now he's back from a broken collarbone. In his first game back today, he goes for 4 catches, 35 yards, and 2 TDs. Now this is great because they're going to have to decide who they're going to cover on that team there once again. He's going to be a great number 2 guy. He's going to stretch the field. He's going to get a lot of opportunity, a lot of targets. You need to grab him now. You need to stash him on your bench. Once again, Will Fuller, wide receiver, the Houston Texans. Another guy out there you need to look at. He's available in 89% of leagues. Another first-round pick. Now, last year had a lot of injuries, okay? He had a lot of injuries this year. He hasn't moved up. But last game, he had a 51-yard touchdown, made a beautiful grab, okay? Reach over a defender, looked great. But it's more than just he had one grab and he had a touchdown. There's a lot of talk coming out of the Washington camp that he's making noise. He's moving up the depth chart. He's a former first-round pick. And don't be all that surprised if he's the number 2 guy on that team before you know it's starting opposite, once again, of prior, with maybe the slot receiver being Crowder. Once again, he's a guy that I'm not saying you need to rush to pick him up. I think you need to have him on your watch list. You need to have him on your radar. Keep an eye on this guy. He plays tomorrow night. I'm interested to see how he follows up last week. Now here's another guy out there you need to look at, Devin Funchess, excuse me. And he's available in 75% of leagues. We had him in our waiver wire video last week, okay? We thought he had a good matchup, and there's some things that are coming into play. But it's more than a matchup. This guy's starting to develop into a legitimate number 1, number 2 wideout. Once he's not there at number 1 yet, but he's definitely moving to that role. He had another 9 targets today. He had 70 yards and 2 TDs. He's looking better and better. But here's what I think is most encouraging. Okay, he didn't have just a big day because of sheer volume. There was talk that Kelvin Benjamin may not be able to play, that he's banged up and injured, but he ended up playing today. Benjamin did, okay, and Devin still had more targets. In fact, he out-targeted him 9-4. So once again, he's not just getting numbers by volume. It's a guy that week after week he's seen more and more targets. He's had 19 targets the last 2 weeks. He's been more and more productive. He's a big physical wide receiver. So he's a guy that we're really excited about. He's available in about 75% of leagues. He's a guy you need to pick up and stash. So just a few more guys to talk about out there. Maybe you're looking for a tight end out there. Tyler Kroft, tight end for Cincinnati. Of course, Tyler Eifert's out. He's injured. Today, Kroft had a great game, a 2015 pick. He had 6 catches, 68 yards, 2 TDs. He's a guy once again now. If Eifert's back and he's healthy, I wouldn't probably start him. But right now, as long as Tyler Eifert's out, however long he's going to be out, he's a guy that I would definitely start. Another guy out there is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's available in about 90% of leagues. He's a tight end for the Jets. Now, if you study this guy's career, if you know anything about it, he's an athletic freak. This guy is totally skilled. Now, the problem with him, he can't stay healthy, and he's gotten into trouble. But he's far too talented to ignore. He had a good game today. He's a guy certainly you want to put on your radar. If you're really desperate, you could pick him up. Another guy out there, it's available, and this is a guy that you got to get. Now, listen to me, especially if you're in a dynasty league that requires you to start tight ends. Evan Ingram, tight end for the Giants. Okay, they love this guy. They said he's athletic. He's got great hands. This guy would be the next Gronkowski. He's available in about 54% of leagues. Weekly, we've seen his targets increase from 7 to 7 to 9, and then this week 11. Today, he had 6 catches, 62 yards. He wowed in the preseason. He's a great guy out there. You got to pick up Evan Ingram, not only for buys, but he's a guy that you need to pick up because before you know it, he's going to be a top 10 tight end going forward. So once again, I pick up Evan Ingram. And one guy I want to leave out there, if you're looking for a kicker, Jake Elliott. Last week, he had a huge kick, 61-yard kick to win the game for Philadelphia. He followed up today with a tremendous game. This guy's money so far. This guy's been hitting everything. He's looking great. So if you're looking for a kicker, he's going to get a lot of volume, playing for a decent offense. It is Jake Elliott, kicker for Philadelphia. Now, once again, so many more guys we'd love to talk to you about. If you have any questions, thoughts, feel free to email us. Okay, you can go to our Facebook site at Fantasy Football Profits. You check us out on the web, whatever it is. Once again, thank you for joining us. I hope you guys are having a good week. Look forward to seeing you later.